All right, why don't we just start with the draft, which is interesting. I mean, at the end of the day, these damn drafts, they've already pretty much ruined it. So it doesn't even feel like it's a draft because they've been using people wherever the hell, whichever show they want to use them in. So it's like, I don't even know who's on what show anyway. So when you move somebody from one show to another, it's like, oh, okay. It's like, who cares? It feels like everybody's just, you're just going from show to show anyway. It feels like they made up this fake rule. Oh, yeah, every now and then you can show up at this show or whatever. It's like, bro, first of all, right now you should probably be avoiding the damn draft. You should probably put everyone together because no one is really that hot. So you need enough hot people to do a damn brand split. That's when you do it. It's you do a draft when you have enough people for both brands. And in this case, now they have, 3 brands. But they don't have enough people. They talent-wise they do, but in terms of them being over and them being hot, everyone's kind of cold. Not everyone. They're starting to heat some people up finally. But they're not there yet. They're not ready to split. They should probably go a year or two before they do another one, and they should let everyone just get hot. Like whatever show there's no more brand split, no rules. You show up whatever show you want to for 2 years, and then we do a good draft that we're gonna stick to the damn rules. But as long as WWE is not disciplined enough to stick to the damn rules and keep everyone separate and make the shows feel unique to each other, the draft is always gonna feel a little it's gonna feel stale. Yeah. So before I start naming some of these people that moved over, you have any thoughts on that, on the draft?
I think it needs to end. I like your idea. I don't know if I would put a set time to it. I think that for me, I would just leave it very open ended until the WWE creatively. It doesn't matter if it takes them 6 months, a year, a decade. Doesn't matter. However long it takes them creatively to get, as you said, enough talents hot to where you can actually do a brand split that gives both programs unique personalities, unique perspectives, and enough top flight stars that they can carry it from a ratings perspective and from at that point, Lord willing, they'd be able to go back to touring, that they can go back and it's a draw for fans to go to the live events. So does it make sense? The answer is no. I think that this draft has become nothing more than a gimmick that the WWE uses every year as a means to move players around. And the thing that kind of makes it a little bit of an eye roll for me is that a lot of times what they end up doing is that they move whole stories, meaning the players that are involved in XYZ storyline, they move them from Raw to SmackDown or vice versa. And to me, it's just kind of like, okay, it's going to be a continuation of the same storyline, just on a different show. I don't know if the writing staffs are different, and maybe a different writing staff might give a unique perspective on a particular storyline. But for me, it just kind of seems like the draft feels flat. It feels just okay, whatever. And to your point, when you were saying that it doesn't really matter because we don't know who's on what show anymore because they just keep bouncing around every week from show to show. And obviously this is based on WWE's relationship with NBC Universal and with Fox, trying to keep, their corporate partners happy. And, when you want to get ratings, and sometimes you have to start, moving pieces around in ways that they probably wouldn't under other types of circumstances. But it doesn't matter what players get moved where. If they don't get hot, to use your words, the draft is meaningless, quite frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, at the end of the day, both they'd be able to please both networks if they can heat up these damn wrestlers. You all you got to do is heat all these motherfuckers up, keep them hot, have fun stories, like, please somebody, make someone happy. Roman Reigns fans, I think, are happy. So it's obviously possible, but you're obviously giving Roman Reigns some little leeway. You're letting him and Paul Heyman do their thing, and you're letting them play with this character. I already know everything I need to know about this damn character. I was like, they explained everything already. I'm good to go.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to go back to what I said in the last video, regarding Roman Reigns. If the WWE were to allow all of their talents to be able to become unique, well-rounded performers, meaning in the way that they present themselves on TV, and I'm not talking about move sets or anything like that. I'm just talking about allowing the personalities to shine a little bit better and allowing them to kind of be themselves. Not so much create a gimmick for them, but kind of allow their natural personalities to shine, and whoever comes forth will come forth. So be it. But again, until the WWE creatively gets it right, meaning that they allow the talents to flourish all on their own, with some direction, and you're not going to just let them fly by the seat of their pants. There is going to be some direction, and there's going to be some maneuvering of the pieces. But listen, the WWE roster, when you look at it, there's no roster like it. There just isn't, from a in-ring talent perspective, experience, and then all the resources that they have. It really is. It almost is absurd to me that the end product that we're getting is just not very good. And it's amazing to me, knowing the brain trust and the talent that they have, that they can't come up with a better show on a week-to-week basis to where it's must-see TV. It's certainly not. It hasn't been in a long time. So again, you got to work. Listen, do the draft. You're already married to it. Get it over with. But once you do it, you really got to commit, and you got to commit to allowing the stars, wherever you put them, let them stay there, keep them separated, and then get them hot. And then once you start intermingling them together, it's going to mean something.
Yeah, look, and they do this damn draft, right? Look, if you're gonna do it, like you say, stick to it, stick to the damn script. You got people in a brand, keep them on their show. Don't let them see the other damn show. Don't let them show up on the other damn show. Don't let them talk about the other show. Survivors at the pay-per-views, they can cross paths. They can see each other in the hallways. If you want to keep doing the Survivor Series thing where the brands face each other, fine. It's special once a year. Fine. If you want to tease something that might happen at WrestleMania, because your plan is to have this guy face this guy, and you want them to, at another pay-per-view, kind of look at each other weird, bump into each other, talk shit to each other, with a little wink, that one day we're going to face each other. We're not on the same brand now. You could do stuff like that. But look, how quickly. This is Monday. We're filming this on a Monday. Raw's happening right now. So I don't know who's being drafted. But I know Seth Rollins got drafted to SmackDown, and they're promoting him showing up on the show tonight. Already, you're breaking the damn rules of the draft. It took you less than 24 hours to break the rules of the draft.
But think about who else got drafted to SmackDown. Buddy Murphy,
the whole storyline.
The whole storyline got drafted over. Yeah. So again, that's the thing that kind of gets me, is that the only thing that they've done is WWE is that they've taken that story that was on Raw and now they're moving it to SmackDown.
Mm-hmm.
It would be interesting to have a situation to where either Seth Rollins or Dominic or so, parts of the story get moved and the other parts are left behind. And then to see how that continues on. And then you can have basically story play out on both shows, just different perspectives and different angles. But
yeah, absolutely. You have the entire storyline, that Rey Mysterio storyline, Dominic Mysterio storyline. It all gets transferred over. You could have easily left, when Seth got drafted, I was like, oh shit, we can continue the story without Seth for now. And we can tell it with Buddy Murphy and bring him up to a upper mid card or almost main event, and that'll be cool because the story's not bad. It's had moments in either direction, but it's working. I think it's keeping people's attention. People are interested in Dominic. I'm interested in Dominic. I want to see his next match. I want to see him keep getting better. You know, he's fresh. He feels fresh. The whole family feels fresh. Buddy Murphy's starting to feel fresh. You know, whatever. You want to see what direction he's going in. You kind of want to see this play out. So, but you moved them all to SmackDown now, so that's weird. But it is what it is. You have Jey Uso got drafted by himself, which I guess that tells you, at least they're gonna tease that they're gonna split them up. Heavy Machinery got split up officially. They're on different brands.
New Day got split up.
That's the big story, and that's one of the ones we need to go into, because you have, even though if you're gonna split them up, this is a good way to do it, because you can always bring them back through another draft, through a trade. When you're done with Big E, if it doesn't work out, or if it does work out, but he gets his run and then it's time to bring him back to the New Day, you can always do that. I like not splitting them up because they wanted to split up. You split them up through the draft, even though it doesn't make sense. It would make more sense if someone aggressively pursued Big E and went, no, this guy, first pick, this guy's the main eventer. Sorry, we need him. Because if you can draft the whole New Day, why would you take why wouldn't you take Big E? Because that's what they did, right? They drafted the New Day, and then they didn't draft Big E.
No, the way that it worked was, so on SmackDown on Friday night this past week, Big E had that just hellacious match against Sheamus where they fought basically what felt like all over the city of Orlando before Big E. I mean, it was gruesome. It was gruesome. Big E gets the win. Then Woods and Kofi appear. Then they beat Nakamura and Cesaro in their first match back, win the tag team titles. Stephanie McMahon appears because obviously, Big E comes out. All three of them are celebrating, and basically Stephanie comes down and drops the dagger and says, "All right, E, you're staying on SmackDown. Kofi and Woods, you're taking yourselves and the SmackDown tag team titles to Monday Night Raw." So I was like, okay, so either we're going to be moving the Street Profits over to SmackDown, or we got ourselves a little bit of a conundrum, and maybe WWE will finally do the right thing about their tag team division and actually have one tag team champion. Hopefully.
Yes, I think this is the problem. I like the concept of one tag team champion. I love the concept of one. I think they don't have enough tag teams, so you should have one tag team champion. With a brand split, it makes it difficult, right? Because first of all, why would anyone draft? Why does it matter who drafts the women's tag team champions if they could show up on any show anyway, based on the rule?
That's why they will be considered free agents.
Yeah, but they were drafted, no? They were drafted.
I think they were drafted to Raw.
So it's like, why would you draft them if you could just give them a call and be like, hey, show up on SmackDown next week? Whenever you want, you can have them show up. So it's a little weird, but think about how the women's tag team division has been booked. Forget the division. Think about the champions. When they show up on another show, it almost feels random. It feels like it's not thought out. It's not thought out. They kind of just do everything at random when it comes to the tag team champions, because it's hard to make them part of the focal storyline when they can show up on any show. We'll just deal with that later.
Well, I think part of the issue with the women's tag team titles, just to piggyback off of that, is more a matter that with their tag team championships, one of the things that they don't do very well, right? You can have an intriguing storyline, which they did excellently when Bayley and Sasha were the tag team champions, because these women, right, the audience has a tremendous relationship with them. So whenever they're on camera, and the fact that they both are excellent workers, both on the stick and in the ring, that it makes sense that you can basically plop them on Raw, SmackDown, NXT. It doesn't matter. They show up. Not only are they going to give you a great match, but they might actually help pop the rating for that night, depending on how the matches are booked. However, when you take a look at Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, first of all, that is as makeshift of a team as you could possibly get. These are two contrasting personalities, and quite frankly, don't go well together, because when you see them, you're like, okay, who's going to beat these two? Shayna Baszler's booked to be, the badass of the WWE, the whole MMA thing, and then Nia Jax is, with all due respect, she's 3 times bigger than everybody else. So it almost seems like what 2 women are going to be able to defeat this duo unless they beat themselves. And for whatever reason, when WWE split up the Iconics, they're splitting up the Iconics with the thought process of giving Peyton Royce a push. The problem is that Peyton Royce and Billie Kay were not over as a team, so there's no point in splitting them up to try to give one person a push if the team as a unit were never over. Now you have the Riot Squad, you bring them back together, and they're trying to have a run. Here's the problem. They don't have enough teams to work with. You can't really get them over. And when you take a look at Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler on the other side, yeah, you can get sympathy for the baby faces, but there just has not been anywhere near the kind of run that you would need to have in order to make that match feel important. Because Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, every time they wrestle, it's always a tag team title match, which is ridiculous. You should just have them come on and just beat some job team. And then you have the Riot Squad fighting from underneath, beating all the other teams, and making a case for themselves. But when you rush it, something that should take 3 months and you do it in 3 weeks, well, it's not going to work out. And obviously in the Clash of Champions, for whatever reason, the tag team title match didn't occur, which, nobody was really crying about, quite frankly. But then you do it on Raw, and it's like, again, in a 3-hour show, when you put that match, I'm like, is anybody going to really be upset if they miss it? The answer is no. And, that's the fault of bad booking, because of the fact that this women's tag team champions, have that leeway where they can bounce from show to show. It actually should bring an impetus for the writing teams on all 3 different shows to try to emphasize their women's tag teams, if they have any, and show some units so that they can start chasing after those titles. Especially in NXT, that they have I don't know. No, they don't have women's tag champions in NXT, but that in NXT you can have a female tag team that comes up and says, hey, we want Jax and Baszler. You start telling that story. SmackDown, same thing. Raw, the same thing. So, that's just a matter of WWE not doing a good job in terms of, long-term story planning and continuity, in terms of telling that, their stories, especially that one.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens with those tag titles, and we'll see what happens with the New Day. And of course, they instantly put the titles back on them.
Yeah, that's a shame, because Nakamura and Cesaro are actually a pretty good team. It'd be nice to have New Day, have to fight a little bit to get the belts, just because. What are you going to do with Shinsuke and Cesaro? I mean, with all due respect, they're great talents, and they made the team work. But in all honesty, I don't see them as a really cohesive team. If you're going to put Cesaro in the tag team, give Sheamus a call, and reform the Bar, because I think that was a natural tag team, a very good one actually.
Cesaro seems to always make it work when it comes to tag teams, but let's see what happens with Big E, his main event push, which already starting to feel stale quick. And he fought Sheamus 3 times in 3 solid matches that were very physical, very fun. But it's been so many interactions, and the matches, it's like, I don't know. They don't feel big. They don't feel special.
Well, this and I'm sorry to cut you off, but here's where that comes through, right? I don't disagree with you. I actually agree with you about that point. 3 very good matches, very physical matches that if you see them in a vacuum just by themselves, you'd be like, this could be a main event on any wrestling show, any promotion anywhere in the world. You put those 2 guys, just looking at it in a vacuum. Here's where the problem lies, right? So if Big E is going to be a baby face that is going to, he's going to branch off from the New Day, and he's going to now become a single star. There's a difference when you look at Big E and he's 6'3", 285 pounds, solid muscle, and he could probably lift up a small house. It's hard to get sympathy on him. And the thing about it is that a match with Sheamus, as physical and as great of an opponent as Sheamus is for him, you're not really telling a story with Big E as a single. They're trying to do it on Talking Smack with the Miz and always pointing out, all the things that he should be doing, and E cuts a tremendous promo telling him why he's wrong. Fantastic. Here's the problem. Nobody's watching Talking Smack. Nobody's watching it. And you can highlight it on SmackDown the next week. That's totally fine. But when it's a B-roll, it's ignored. What has to happen is with Big E is that whole interaction that he had with the Miz could have been a pseudo. I'm not gonna it'd be like a pseudo long-term storyline with Big E against Miz and Morrison. Again, Miz and Morrison are smaller than him, much smaller than him. So you can essentially get sympathy on E if it's 2-on-1 on a weekly basis. Does E win all the time? No. Because if E wins all the time, then he's basically he's squashed the Miz and Morrison. So there's no way to get heat back on those guys. It's either they're gonna have to bloody him up, they're gonna have to lay him out, and then the question becomes is, hey, where's Kofi and Woods? Oh, well, they're on Raw, right? Like it gets to a point where if you're going to tell the story of Big E as a baby face coming from underneath and rising up, you got to create more obstacles for him, and the obstacles have to be things that he temporarily loses, that he temporarily goes down. He's got to get back up. If he wins all the time and he overcomes all the time, then you're not creating an obstacle for him. This is no longer the era where you just you strap the rocket on a guy and he just doesn't lose for a year. That's just not believable anymore, because you can't just chew through the talent like that. You got to be able to create some obstacles for him, because the guys that he has to go through in order to get to the championship are going to be the same guys that are going to come after him when he becomes the champion. Knowing that they've beaten him in the past, you can always revisit those stories with that premise. But if E beats everybody, then the heels have no heat. They got nothing to get on him. So,
well, my thing with Big E right now is, I don't know if this is how you tell the story. I don't know if you put a guy, you're gonna tell the story. Okay, this guy's gonna ascend to the top. They pretty much told us, which I don't know if I agree with that, but they've pretty much said it on television. This guy can be a main eventer. Big E's getting a singles rush. Kofi, hey, we want you to go out there and do your thing on your own, basically. They're telling us this guy's getting a main event push. Okay, so what do you do next? Okay, we're going to keep you in a feud with a guy in the middle who also has no direction, working solid matches out, of course. And you want to show off that Big E can have these awesome matches that are singles matches, not just tag team matches. Awesome. Big E's proved me. Yeah, I knew he could do it. So, he's proving everybody right, I think. I don't think there's anybody out there who thought he couldn't have good singles matches and cut good promos and do all that good stuff and be entertaining on his own. He can definitely do it. However, I don't know if being stuck for months in a feud is how you start this story. I kind of rather see him ascend, put a roadblock in front of him, one that he can knock out quick, that goes, oh, Big E's looking good. Then you put a bigger roadblock, but a big name, a name that's bigger than him. Not a name that's same level, not a guy who we don't know what we're going to do with. A clear-cut, big name, and let him beat him, and okay, this guy is legit. Then let's put a title in front of him. These mid-card, let's go back to traditional ways. Let's put the IC title on Big E or something like that. Obviously, it's like, okay, this guy's here. He's not messing around. Just think about like that Kurt Angle run, or, Bret Hart's ascension, Shawn Michaels' ascension. It felt obvious, and these guys didn't feel stagnant ever. It felt like you saw the climb, and you saw it early. You're like, oh, this guy can be in the main event, and then eventually they were in the main event.
It took it. The thing is, with those guys, they had, and really with those examples like Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, it definitely was a different time in the WWE, because obviously there wasn't nearly as much television. They're not producing nearly as much. Their business was a live event business back, 20, 30 years ago. Their business now is about TV. Now, the thing is with Big E, he has a lot of equity with the audience because he's been on WWE TV for the better part of the last decade. And for the most part, I mean, over the last 6 or 7 years, being a member of the New Day, he's always, they've always been featured, whether it's heels or as baby faces, they've always been featured very well, and they've always come through in the big moments. Now, when I'm thinking about the roadblocks that you can put in front of, Big E, you could talk about, let's just use like the current slate of heels. You can probably put Miz and Morrison in front of him first. Then you can throw Sheamus. Then you could throw Baron Corbin. Realistically, what the ultimate roadblock that I would like to see would be like a Randy Orton, or let's just say that the Hurt Business was on SmackDown. Let's just say, for example, then you can have Big E overcoming Lashley, overcoming all of those guys. Because it's a matter of every single person that he beats has to be the next level up, to the point where once he gets that championship, you've taken the ride for a year, where now it's like, okay, even though WWE is beating you over the head with it, that this is what we're going to deliver. Sometimes it's okay. Like I don't need to be surprised. You can beat me over the head that, oh, this guy's going to get over, as long as it's done in an entertaining fashion and done believably, and make Big E relatable. Because again, for a guy like Big E, if he was 6 feet tall and 230 pounds, it'd be a different story versus being 6'3" and 285. Because when you're smaller, you can create more obstacles and you can get more sympathy. But for a guy like E, you got the obstacles have to be things that really create roadblocks for him that he can gain sympathy. If he can't get the sympathy, it's going to be very difficult for you to feel any real emotion when he comes through in the end.
All right, so we had that AEW had that tribute to Jericho show.
Oh boy.
What happened? You don't like tributes?
Oh no, I got nothing. There's not the tributes to Jericho were actually really cool. I enjoyed those. It's everything. It was everything in between,
Well, we're just talking about the concept here, the idea of showing love to Jericho, giving him an opportunity to be more full of himself, which I like. I like getting all the celebrities to show love to Jericho. Also, his match didn't turn out to be good because of what's this poor guy's name?
First of all, with all due respect to Luther and Serpentico, it's the reason why those guys are always on Dark, and the very first match they have on Dynamite is a main event match against realistically probably the biggest star in AEW, who, like I said before, God bless Chris Jericho because he's trying really hard to give back, right? The problem is that he's giving back to individuals that are not going to be able to take that and make it work long term. And the thing is, the more he does that, and this match was particularly bad, but the more of this that happens, at some point, in my eyes, Jericho no longer looks like a big star. He looks like he's on par with the rest of the roster, and that's not good.
Well, I don't think that's what this was. I think this was for Jericho's book. This is on my 30th anniversary. I faced a guy that I faced my first year in the business, and unfortunately, every now and then, especially in wrestling, it happens a lot, but in all sports, you have magic happens, and sometimes, trust me, I don't think Luther. This is the worst that Luther I've ever seen. Luther, I've seen him work a lot better, on Dark or whatever. Not blowing things, not blowing anyone out of the water, but you know what I mean. He's had solid performances. This performance, he was like, obviously, this was too big a stage for him. And maybe he got nervous because it felt like everything was going wrong for him. Everyone else seemed fine, but everything was going wrong for him, which completely ruined the match. But I think it's okay to. The purpose of this match really wasn't to go out there and have a good match. Is we're telling the story of Jericho. Jericho's gonna get a nice victory. He got to go in there with his 30-year-long friend or whatever, rival, whatever you want to say, but he gets a big victory, main event victory, uses his nice finish, nice little elbow there, and then afterwards he has his celebration and he gets his moment with MJF. So, was the match good? No, but I think you do got to take those chances, because every now and then Luther could have easily he could have had a good match, and it could have been a good story. It doesn't always work out that way, but sometimes it does work out that way, where a guy that you think he doesn't have anything left, and then out of nowhere they shock the world. It didn't work out this time, but it could have, and I think it's okay to try.
Well, listen, I remember when I saw the video package that Jericho cut, like that promo talking about Luther. Here's the thing that got me about that, right? It was an excellent piece. It was excellent because he explained the story in that, however long that video package, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, however long it lasted. He basically explained Luther's entire career. The thing about it is that for mainstream wrestling fans, they probably have never heard of this guy before he got to AEW. And then when he was presented in AEW, he was just presented as this, crazy psycho character inside of Brandy Rhodes's, short-lived, House of Horrors gimmick that she had going on. Then he basically just kind of disappeared. They put him in a team with Serpentico and AEW Dark. And again, I've already bemoaned the whole idea of AEW Dark in terms of like, if you're going to present Chaos Project and you're going to, if you AEW knew that on this particular episode of Dynamite, you were going to feature Chaos Project in a main event against Jericho and Hager, you have to, first off, you got to explain the story of these guys and tell us why we should care. Feature them on Dynamite winning. Because again, if on AEW Dark, only the most avid of AEW fans or the most avid of wrestling fans will actually watch it, and it garners, 50% of the television audience, if you just, based on those numbers, then it becomes even a much smaller audience that knows who these guys are, knows their gimmick, I knew nothing about them. That package Jericho cut was fantastic, but at the end of the day, I'm just like, I still don't care because I have no relationship with Luther as an audience member. And the thing is that I'm not going to sift through and watch AEW Dark to try to understand something of a gimmick that I'm like, just on the periphery, I already know. It's just like, okay, this isn't really a gimmick that I care too much about. And then after seeing this match, I can understand them saying, hey, you got to take a chance, right? Okay, fine. But at the end of the day, you guys, if Luther and Serpentico have been working on AEW Dark and you're saying that they've had decent matches, I'm like, okay, who have they been working against? What's the length of the match? Is Luther really being featured, or is it Serpentico that's working the majority of the match in terms of whether he's doing, babyface shine or, the babyface imperil, whatever the matches are. I've never seen them work before this match. And it really felt like a handicap match because I don't ever remember seeing Hager in the ring. It literally felt like it was Chris Jericho against Serpentico and Luther with Hager in the corner, just kind of waiting to, to be thrown around by a guy, a third of his size in Serpentico. Because that's really what it felt like. All the spots, even though Serpentico was throwing himself at Hager, but it just felt like this could have easily been a one-on-one match. Because it felt like the story was Jericho and Luther. It could have been a one-on-one match. I understand why they do the tag team match so they could feature Serpentico and kind of cover Luther up a little bit so that he doesn't have to work the whole match. I get it, but it was just rotten. It was rotten. And the interaction with MJF at the end, I understand that they're building to something. It's just a matter that there are times I wish, like, damn it, I just wish that MJF wasn't involved because. No, I'm going to explain why. I'm going to explain why.
MJF will yell at you and be like, "Get away from me, Lou."
I'm going to explain why.
Not to work with Jericho.
No, this is the reason why. Because I really, really enjoy watching MJF on AEW. I honestly think he's the brightest spot on their show. Excuse me, consistently. He's consistently the best thing on the show. It frustrates me that AEW gives so much time to things that you can cut those matches and certain of those segments, you could cut them in half and they'll be just as good. And they dedicate so much time to things that are just eye rollers and they can't leave better off alone. And yet when I see MJF, I get 2 minutes of him and I'm like, he's gone. And I'm like, I want to see more of him.
Well, Lou, I think that's the idea. And I like that idea. You got to protect MJF. You can't just have him out there having matches. No. Slow.
You can have him work. Listen, the whole idea is have him work against job guys. You're not putting him in there against, in quote unquote storylines. It's about featuring him, having him. He could work a 2-minute match and then cut a 5-minute promo, and it'll be just fine. The thing is, for me, is that when I look at the inner circle as a whole, and this includes Chris Jericho, ever since the COVID thing, and particularly from Double or Nothing all the way till now, it seems to me like they come across as less valuable. Like I seek, if Chris Jericho and MJF would have worked pre-COVID, when the inner circle, yeah, they still did goofy things, but for the most part, it was serious. And for the most part, I like, these guys look like main eventers. It would have been like, yeah, this is really good. AEW's got something here. The thing about it is that AEW has effectively done a fantastic job of kind of dulling the edges on both acts. And now they're trying to sharpen them together. And I'm like, listen, you can easily
Yep. You think that the edges have been dulled on MJF?
A little bit, yeah. The way
in his first year, a 23-year-old, you think
the way he was booked against Moxley, yes. The way he was
lost to the champ, and he's 23 years old.
It's not a matter of him losing. It's a matter of how he was made to look goofy for the most part. And the only time that he really showed that edge was, during, the week before his match. And then you basically see that match. And again, we know that Moxley's a babyface, but the way that Moxley works and the way that MJF works, it almost looked like MJF was the babyface. He got the color, he got beat up, all that jazz. And
yes, you know why? Because that's his freaking job. He's the fucking heel. He has to make the babyface look good, not the other way around.
No, because Moxley doesn't need to be made. Listen, Moxley's a made man in AEW. It's a different story if MJF was the veteran and Moxley was the up and comer, then yes, that makes absolute sense.
Well, MJF's not gonna do that. MJF's gonna follow tradition and he's gonna play the role of a heel. He's gonna be the chicken shit. He's gonna shine up every baby face, make them all look good. This is what he does. This is what FTR does. They're gonna follow very similar paths.
Well,
this is what they do.
all I know is that when I see MJF and Chris Jericho in this iteration, I'm not ready for it, because I prefer to see them work against other people. And essentially for me, because I think Chris Jericho is definitely excuse me, he's definitely the main eventer in AEW. The thing is that he's done too much comedy and too many bad matches that it's almost like, for me, it's like it's decreasing his value to me. And MJF is not featured enough for, to kind of have enough of a reason to be like, why would this, where, this is like slow and the buildup is slow. Maybe there is, and I hope that AEW has like a really great plan to make this work. Because if it's just going to be the two of them kind of having, for lack of a better term, they're having, they're just kind of, trying to outshine each other back and forth. It's going to be like, okay, give us like the subtle end. Give us the subtle end game, even if it's not blatantly obvious, but give us enough of a clue that you're kind of shining the light on where this is going to end. Because at this point right now, I'm kind of like, I wish MJF didn't show up, because after that, just caca of a match that Jericho and Hager had against Chaos Project, I would have preferred that Jericho just cuts a promo, they do that silly SNL ending, and just call it a day, and we'll see MJF next week. There was no point. I didn't think so. I don't think there was any point in having him out there.
I mean, there's no point if they're not gonna do anything with it. But I mean, there's obviously something coming. I don't know what it is, and that's a good thing. It's not obvious what's they're probably gonna have a match, but that's chapter 1. And if you go back and just look at highlights of Jericho MJF interactions, they've been amazing for me. Maybe I don't know how you feel, but the relationship between MJF and Jericho, if you put it all together, you can probably get 15 minutes of footage. It's like a sitcom. It's like a little episode of a TV show.
But that's the thing.
When you put it all together, that's great.
Yeah, okay, that's great. But the thing about it is that ultimately, when you're going to see two heels, that if you're going to get to a trajectory of a match, like an actual match that's going to be, pseudo grudge match, right? Again, with two heels, this is the whole thing. Again, with just pro wrestling in general, everybody's, this is not AEW specific, but I pick on them a lot because they do this very often. The heels and baby faces, there's no definitive lines between who's who, because you just have people interact with each other, for all types of reasons. When MJF cut that terrific promo a couple of weeks ago, when he was talking about, I need to be part of a faction, I was like, okay, that's great. I was thinking that that's going to be an introduction to new talent that was coming in, from somewhere else, and introduce them with MJF and create a faction. The fact is that if MJF is trying to interject himself into the inner circle, again, when I take a look at the inner circle, to me, they're less valuable now than they were a year ago when this started, because of how they've been booked. Because they have not been booked to retain their heat in such a way that if MJF were to try to come in, and let's just say that he's trying to take Jericho's spot, let's just say that that's the whole purpose of this, right? That MJF is trying to take Jericho's spot and become the leader of the inner circle and oust Jericho. Would Hager, Sammy Guevara, and LAX, be elevated with MJF, or would they be an anchor for him down? Now, if the inner circle would be booked as like top flight heels, yes, they're not gonna win every match, but to be booked in a way that they look strong, then everything gets elevated. And then when you flip Jericho babyface, holy mackerel, you got yourself, a great storyline to tell. But when you do so much comedy and you have a lot of their heat that has been taken down, and whether it's because the babyface talent that they're working with just isn't serious enough, isn't over enough. The stories seem to be very goofy and it's meant to be entertaining and haha. Then now, if let's say that that's the end game to this, does it really matter? Does it really matter?
If what you just said happens, the wrestling world will lose, AEW fans will lose their mind in a good way, and everyone involved will be elevated. It doesn't matter. It's wrestling, and you can always be the hottest thing again. Yes, absolutely. You've never seen a guy. Randy Orton was the hottest thing ever. Was trash, complete garbage for 5-6 years, and now is the hottest thing ever again.
You got to understand something, though. You see, you're using that example, and that's fine. The thing about it is with Randy Orton is that Randy Orton has never been presented on WWE TV as comedy or done goofy stuff.
Okay.
As what the inner circle does. So yes, Randy Orton at certain points was stale. At certain points, it was boring and not entertaining. But Randy Orton was never presented as anything other than Randy Orton. Well, it doesn't matter now that he's really found his stride now and he's doing fantastic work for the WWE. But it doesn't mean that, if we went ahead and tried to present him as like a Santino Marella type, that he can then become serious again and we buy him. Because the answer is no.
There are no Santino Marella types in AEW because the style of storytelling is different. These are just people, and people are funny. In AEW. In WWE, these characters, nobody can be funny except the one comedian, because that's a comedian. He's the clown of the show. R-Truth is the clown of the show. No one else could be funny. Now, when the stories were more fun and they were better in WWE, is when everybody had their own personality and everyone was funny. When Kurt Angle was funny, when Stone Cold was funny, when The Rock was funny, when Mick Foley was funny. Everybody was funny except for like The Undertaker. Everyone was funny.
Well, Steve Austin was funny when he was injured and he couldn't wrestle.
Well, the heel Steve Austin was hilarious.
But that's
shockingly funny, and it's okay. It was part of his personality. He happens to be funny, but my point isn't. I don't think what I'm trying to say is you can go from hot to stale to hot. It's possible, and if your story, I don't know if that's what's going to happen, and that's why I kind of like that. I don't know that, but that's a good idea, and it's a possibility. And the good thing is that everyone knows that's a possibility, because they're kind of teasing that. That doesn't mean that's where they're going, but they're kind of teasing what would happen if MJF was to get into the inner circle. You see him kind of treating Sammy like shit, but does he want Jericho's spot? He's obviously not going to go there to play second fiddle. He'll act like he's playing second fiddle, but you know he wants the better story is if he can take Jericho out, or if Jericho could take him out, whatever it is, and who's going to pick what side. Because Sammy Guevara loves Jericho. Can MJF convince the inner circle? I think yes, because money talks. But yeah, if he's presented as the richest guy, they haven't said this, but in storyline, this guy comes from money. If he can present some cash to Hager and Pride and Powerful,
let's call him LAX. That's such a better name.
Yeah, but you know they can't use LAX. This is one of the coolest names ever, but they can't use that. So, but with Sammy, who loves Jericho and it shines through on television, what would he do? So you know it's interesting things, and then you can have a mini feud with Sammy and MJF before he gets to Jericho. There's so many things you can do. But what I'm saying is, the comedy that you didn't like, that Lou didn't like it, but some people still see Inner Circle as this really, really cool act, and they enjoyed the Stadium Stampede, and they enjoyed the match right now in the parking lot. You didn't enjoy that.
No, the parking lot match, I actually enjoyed it. The problem was that the whole story leading to that match was like, okay, it was a yawn fest the whole way there, and then obviously the ending, you know, we've already been
at least the story to me made sense. Everything that they teased was paid off in the match. They were able to tell their story. They were able to accomplish what they were trying to accomplish. And to me, I think everyone was elevated. Maybe you don't think that, but I thought everyone was elevated in that match.
No, not at all, because I don't think anybody was elevated. I won't get too far into that.
Some people are calling that the best match in AEW history. That's not what I feel. I think Cody and Dustin had the best match in AEW history.
It was an entertaining match. Don't get me wrong. It was an entertaining fight. I thought that, you know, the way that they presented Orange Cassidy in that match, I understand that he needed to be part of the match because it was part of the payoff. The way they introduced him was awful. And then having, you know, best friends after getting the piss beaten out of them and then going into their mother's minivan. And then the last thing you see is mom flipping the bird and then having the announcers belly laughing and losing their minds over it. I'm like, basically what you just told us was these guys spent 20 minutes beating the piss out of each other and we're supposed to laugh at the end. That's the reason why none of those guys got over at the end.
I don't know. I disagree. I think they got over. If you didn't like the joke, that's fine, but I still think 95% of the AEW fan base loved it. I don't know if I'm just making that number up, but
yeah, I'm just saying. I just, you know, there's a lot of ways, because ultimately the whole idea of elevation is that you want to see these people as more of a threat, as more viable at the end of that. And the thing about the best friends is that now that they're moving on to, you know, working with FTR, I don't see them as any more viable if they would be working with FTR and they never had that parking lot match against LAX, I wouldn't see them as any less viable in this match than afterwards. So it really, the whole purpose of that match is to make the best friends look much more viable to the point where now when they would work against FTR as an audience member, I would think like, wow, this can be a big deal. And I don't see it that way. I just kind of see it as a match that is being presented as a match for the sake of, hopefully, because FTR are a fantastic team, despite the match they had this week, this past week against Angelico and Jack Evans, which was a mess. Hopefully, because I think Trent Beretta's a talent. And despite what I think of Chuck Taylor, Chuck Taylor is not a bad wrestler. It's just a matter that a lot of the goofiness and a lot of the stupid stuff that he doesn't seem to, for me, doesn't mesh well with Beretta. And I think that it actually does more harm to Beretta than good. But in those two against FTR, I'm expecting the match to be good.
So am I. Okay, so let's just move on. Let's do a quick little chat about this dog collar match. Yeah, you had Cody going over Brody, which I wanted Brody to win, but now I kind of know what happened here. Clearly, that was not Brody ever winning the title was probably not on the cards, and they probably saw something in him and was like, you know what, let's give him the belt. It gave Cody a reason to hit refresh on his character, make some interesting changes. Maybe you don't like it, but he changed his gear, he changed his entrance, he changed his hair, which is what I like. Keep refreshing your character. Even though I loved everything, I love blonde hair Cody.
I prefer dark hair Cody, believe it or not.
I prefer blonde Cody only because he looks like he's straight out of a video game. He looks like I don't necessarily, well, right now he looks like a vampire, and before he looked like somebody from Street Fighter or something. I don't know. He looked like a
I don't want you making any references to Street Fighter, or he looks like, Dragon Ball Z or anything like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. He looked awesome. He was one of the cooler. His look is one of the cooler looks in all of wrestling. Like blonde-haired Cody, he still is. He gets it when it comes to his look. So the only thing that's whack is his tattoo.
Well,
but if he was drawn on a comic book, if you draw Cody on a comic book, the tattoo is dope. It's just not dope on a real human being when he's outside of the wrestling ring. So it sucks for his social life or whatever.
What's done is done, bro.
But it's cool for video games and for comic books and for whatever else you want to do with that. But anyway, it starts off right away. They want to put over this chain, and Cody's gonna knock. Who was it? What's his name?
Yeah, John Silver.
He knocks him out, but it gets the chain over because you get color 5 seconds in because of the chain.
Yeah, but it literally took John. It took the camera a whole minute and change before they went back to Silver. So that means either he didn't know how to blade himself. I was like, dude, you take the shot, boom, you give me your forehead, boom, and you start bleeding immediately.
I mean, this was a Cody match, and Cody, I forgot when it was, but I remember. Oh, it was when he fought Nick Aldis. It took him about 15 minutes to get to cut himself. So I don't know if Cody's gonna be too upset with with Silver, but yeah, anyway.
That's.
What was the last match that I wasn't happy with because the wrestlers were close enough to hit each other, but would try to use the rope or whatever it was that they were tied with? Do you remember what match this was? We talked about it on here. I just can't remember what kind of match it was.
Is this AEW, WWE?
I can't remember. But anyway, I'm pretty sure it wasn't AEW. Just because the stupidity is WWE stupidity for me. These guys were so close to each other, and they could easily punch each other, but they would use I gotta use this rope or whatever it is.
I think you might be talking about the Dexter Loomis versus Strong.
That's what it was. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the
This
match.
was not this. This was these guys. Whenever they were at a distance, they'd use the chain and pull each other. They used it, and even though it's technically like a hardcore, no rules type match, whatever, they only used the chain. So the story was built around the dog collar, and they kept it that way. It made sense. They'd hit each other. You should bleed in this match. It doesn't make sense for me to punch you with a chain. It's bad enough you don't bleed when I punch you with my fist, but now I'm gonna wrap a chain around it, and now I'm gonna hit you, and then you still don't bleed. I mean, this was very physical. I think if you want a dog collar match, if you want to make it good, it's hard to make them good, like I said. But if you beat the shit out of each other, that's the best you can do. That's what these guys did. They beat the shit out of each other. I would like Brody to win and then take this up another level. But, they're going to finish it here. Sucks for Brody. But like I said, and I know we're going to get into, booking these types of matches, And maybe the stip is special enough for pay-per-view, absolutely, because it hasn't been done in forever. The stip, but I think the people in play, Brody, I think they see him as a guy. For one, he has to kind of earn that main event spot. They gave him a chance. To me, he did a good job. The little tiny 1 month run he had, had some solid performances for my taste. But he's a guy that's going to be plugged in when they need him. If they need a main event, they'll squeeze him in there. But I don't think they see him yet as a main event. Same thing with Archer. They need him right now for this Moxley story. But they'll be done with him. He'll move back down for now. But if he can, he's not there yet. This is not the best Archer. This is not the best Brody Lee we've seen. They still have some work to do. So if they can keep getting better, if they get better and they work on their character and the character gets over, then that's when they're ready for the main event. But I don't think they're main event people just yet.
Well, I mean, I can agree with you on your disposition that Archer nor Brody Lee are ready for the main event. It kind of annoys me a little bit with the two of them. Understandably in this context. You take a look at a guy like Brody Lee and Lance Archer. The thing that stands out about them immediately is their size. And it's not like they're both bad workers. They're not. It's a matter that with Brody Lee being packaged with all due respect to all the members of the Dark Order, with a bunch of job guys, makes him look like shit, no matter how you cut it. Lance Archer being with Jake Roberts is a fantastic pairing in theory. However, this version of Jake the Snake Roberts doesn't seem completely comfortable with the idea of being a corner man and being a good enough corner man to where he constantly talks up his guy, where Archer has to say nothing and still look devastating. If, like, let's say that Jake Roberts had, 1/10 of Paul Heyman's promo ability as a manager, not as a wrestler, but as a manager, convincing manager to where you as the audience member know that Paul Lee or Jake Roberts is just a mouthpiece and he's never going to get involved because Archer is the man. He is it. Then Archer could be seen as a main event player in AEW. Now, do I agree with your disposition about, we can just kind of plug them in whenever? The answer is no. This is the thing with Archer. This goes back to Double or Nothing when he lost to Cody, the way that he lost, right? It almost seemed like he was in control for 80% of the match, but yet Cody with his 20% of offense beat him. It's not a matter that it was the wrong thing to do, because it was the right thing to put the title on Cody. It was the right thing to do. However, the match was not close enough to where it felt like a competitive match and just Archer he made a mistake or something went through. It didn't feel that way. Then you start booking him in situations where he just kind of gets lost in the shuffle. And now you're going to tell me that he'll win a battle royal, and now he's going to be the number one contender for the AEW title based on that. There's not enough of progression with him, and realistically, AEW has a lot of talents that they do this with. It's not good executional booking for the people who are not in the top stories. The people who are bubbling underneath are guys who you have to feature pretty regularly. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be in feature matches. It could be in squash matches, but it's a matter of keeping their face and keeping them, in the eye of the viewer, making sure that they're aware of XYZ person. Now, listen, the Brody and Cody match, yes, it was brutal. I give massive amounts of respect to both guys for the effort that they put, because they put a great effort in this match. Now, do I think this match should have happened on Dynamite? Absolutely not. The fact that it was put on Dynamite, basically they pissed away. AEW did one of their feature matches on this Full Gear pay-per-view. Was I surprised that Cody Rhodes won? No. There's nowhere for this story to go. This is the blow-off. After the dog collar match, what are you going to do? Career-ending match? I quit match? Cage match? None of these matches are matches that the fans have not already seen in the previous 5 years. It's not new. The dog collar match, because of the fact that it's been nearly 4 decades since we've seen one on national television, is special. And they blew an opportunity to make it that much more special by putting it on pay-per-view. Because it's not like the WWE network. WWE they don't work in the pay-per-view business anymore. They stream all their stuff online. The fans who have the network they've already paid for all this stuff up front. WWE's making no extra dollars selling pay-per-views. AEW does. So on the basis of that, this match needs to be on pay-per-view. Then on top of that, once the match is over, now we say goodbye to Brody Lee, and then we say hello to Orange Cassidy. That's fine. To the AEW audience, Orange Cassidy is a big deal. I don't see him that way, but the AEW audience does. But you went from a grudge match where Cody Rhodes is from a just a visual perspective, you would think of him as the underdog. After getting his ass kicked 6 weeks earlier, where he lost the title in 3 minutes, and Brody Lee took his lunch and went home. Then you start telling this story. Cody comes back, 2 or 3 weeks ago, wipes out all the Dark Order minus Brody.
I watched that back, Lou. He punched one guy on the ramp, and then he beat up one guy in the ring.
Well, yeah, that's still.
I told you in our video. I don't think but think about it. That's still a silly comeback, because you figure that all the Dark Order guys would be there to feed him. That's the premise of this, right? So now Cody basically bows up and takes on the Dark Order by himself. Whether it's 2 or 3 guys, it doesn't matter. But he got ahead. Then Brody says, "I want a dog collar match." It's just like, why? Cody accepts. We have this match. You could have had this match on pay-per-view, and you could have even gone one level further. There's still some limitations on national television, what they probably can and cannot do. Versus pay-per-view, you can get to that next level. You can go as far as you want without maiming each other on pay-per-view. The fact that they did this on free TV, like I said, great effort on the part of both guys. But to me, it's a wasted match, because this is a money match. And the thing is now is that, what story now do you tell with Brody Lee? Now you have to reset him yet again. Yet again, you have to reset him. Yeah, but isn't that what you do with everyone, Lou?
No.
Everyone gets
no. You don't know. You don't get 2 resets in 6 months.
No. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in every feud, when you have a feud and the feud is over, both people reset.
Yes, but here's the thing about it. At the end of the day, we shouldn't be discussing this now as a Brody Lee reset. We should be discussing this as the tease to the pay-per-view.
No, I agree that this match should have been on pay-per-view. I would have preferred it on pay-per-view. I don't know what their top thought process was, and
No.
I won't ever know. Me personally, I love building to pay-per-views. I think the coolest stuff should happen on pay-per-view. So now they got to find something cooler to do on pay-per-view.
You know what
I
I
don't know
mean?
what that is. I don't know if it's possible, and I don't know why they felt they did that they couldn't wait another 4 weeks. So I don't know.
I don't know, and I'm a
I
little
would have
surprised.
I would have did 2 or 3 things different. But what's done is done. I'm not worried for Brody Lee. Like I said, he's in the spot. I think he's in the right spot right now. I think Cody's in the right spot right now. Cody's an awesome TNT champion. He did a great job before. I think he'll do another great job.
Sure.
I don't know what's the next step. I also like not knowing what the hell is going on. What's the next direction? I don't know who's going to take the title off Cody. I don't know what that means. You know, I also Cody cuts this super uber babyface promo, and it makes you go, that was a little extra. He put a little extra stank on that babyface promo, and you're like, I wonder if he's gonna do something nasty to Orange Cassidy, because
Well, but
I don't
again,
know. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
listen, all I know is that when I see there's, again, I just saw Orange Cassidy get his ass whipped by by Brody Lee 2 or 3 weeks ago in a match that was an appropriate match for Brody Lee to have, all because of the fact that Brody Lee is a heel and you beat up on the babyface, right? That makes sense. Again, you're going from a grudge match, which makes sense because these guys have an issue. Brody Lee beat the piss out of Cody, took the belt off of him, laid out his wife, his brother, cousins, next door neighbors, and everybody else, laid them all out. And now the title gets taken off of Brody, and then immediately they book the next match with Orange Cassidy. With all due respect, I understand that to the AEW audience, he's a big deal, but it's just it kind of feels like it's going back to business as normal, meaning you're having random matches for the TNT title and no real story,
We think
being led around it.
It's a random match.
It feels.
I don't think anything that Cody's doing is necessarily random, especially if they're going to put Orange Cassidy there. What's the purpose? I don't know if it's to tease a Cody heel turn in the future. I don't know if it's to tease Orange Cassidy getting close to the title. I don't know if it's for Brody to beat the shit out of both of them. Like, fuck y'all both. I'm sick of both of y'all.
Yeah, then we'll get to see a triple threat between the three of them, which is not what I'd want to see.
Well, I mean, because a single is better than a triple threat. I'm guessing that's what you mean.
Well,
you don't want to see a triple threat between anyone.
In most cases, that would be correct. However, when you look at these three personalities, the way that the story is right now, again, dog collar match at pay-per-view would have been my preference. That would have been a main event match. That's my preference every time.
Mine too.
Every single time. But if you're going to insert Orange Cassidy into this somehow, I would say you do it afterwards, which they're clearly doing now, having Orange Cassidy work against Cody. It's a completely different match. And for my flavor, it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, okay, on paper, I'm rolling my eyes. Now, is there going to be some kind of story to this? I'm sure there will be. Whether I like it or not is yet to be seen. But it comes across as like, okay, let the babyface, meaning Cody, walk out with his win. Let it kind of sit. You don't have to give the opponent right then and there. Because once Orange Cassidy comes out, it just kind of feels like, okay, this dog collar match, this brutal match that Cody had to fight tooth and nail to win, now literally moments later is forgotten because now we're talking about Orange Cassidy. Not necessarily.
I also agree. I agree with you there too. I think it's better to just let that story, let the exclamation point be Cody cut a fired up promo and that's it. Leave it at that. And I'm cool with that. But I'm sure they're probably just trying to get people excited, and that's what sucks about that's. I know you like Wednesday, but unfortunately, you get stuff like this where there's a little weird. Let's promote something that we don't necessarily need. They didn't need to promote that match.
You're right.
But they did it. They did it probably because we're in the middle of a fake ratings war. So we promote everything where it's probably better to make it a surprise or whatever. We can.
Listen, I'm of the ilk that when it comes to this ratings thing, it's complete nonsense and it's BS because guess what? They get the exact same ratings. AEW somewhere between 750,000, 850,000, and NXT somewhere between 650 and 750,000. It doesn't change no matter what event you put on. Unless they're separated and not against each other, those numbers aren't going to change. So you know what? Just
do your thing.
Do your thing. Stay in your lane and stop worrying about what the guy next door is doing. Because guess what? It's not going to make an iota of difference to your business.
Yeah. Okay, let's just move on really quick. We have NXT announced Halloween Havoc, which is gonna be a special, and that's cool. October 28th. Are you happy to see Halloween Havoc back? Are you happy to see NXT using it?
I will say this: am I happy to see Halloween Havoc back? The answer is yes. Yes, I am. I think it's important. It's important because it was one of WCW's staple events. I think that, having the way that WWE is presenting it, having Shotzi Blackheart as the host, kind of like playing the role of Elvira and all this, kind of seems corny and just going to probably...
But wrestling fans are super nerdy. They're going to like that.
I guess.
At least...
It adds nothing for me. It adds nothing for me.
I know it's nothing for you, but some people will really, really enjoy that. And, Shotzi, it fits her character at least.
Yes, it does. It clearly fits her persona. I think it's very important because with WWE, at least what I think that they're doing with NXT, and they've done this, they did it in the spring with the Great American. I think it was either in the spring or the summer, probably in July with the Great American Bash. They're doing this now with Halloween Havoc, and then renaming the Performance Center the Capitol Wrestling Center. What WWE is really doing, or at least with NXT, they're trying to utilize it as a means in certain ways to re-educate the audience about the roots of WWE. Now, I know that the Great American Bash and Halloween Havoc are not WWE properties. They're from NWA, WCW. That is original to them. But the matter of being able to reintroduce these concepts, and hopefully what WWE will do with Halloween Havoc is maybe, come up with like the really cool, like the super cool moments that have happened in Halloween Havoc over the years when it was a WCW pay-per-view. It's going to drive people to the WWE network. It will kind of educate them a little bit on, wrestling's past, and hopefully, allow Halloween Havoc to, with this generation of wrestling fans who probably are not old enough to know about Halloween Havoc and the importance that it meant to WCW's existence, 20, 30 years ago, to be able to appreciate that concept, and then WWE being able to monetize it and use it, whether it be an NXT special or if they so choose to make it a WWE network special, later on down the road, if they so choose to go down that route, because it's a easy, ready-made, Halloween themed show that they can do on the WWE network and really go all out with it if they choose to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you own it, you might as well use it. I don't think they're trying to educate anyone. I don't know, whatever. I don't know why they're doing it. I think maybe Triple H just goes, you know what, let's bring this back. All this stuff goes down in NXT, doesn't go down in the main roster, which is fine. At least someone. I'm happy that those names stay alive at the end of the day. That's all I care about. Right. At least this one makes sense. If this one of all of them, it makes so much sense. And it's not like it's like a Starcade or whatever, because when they use stuff like that, it's frustrating because they act like they don't really care, and they're just using the name to pop a rating.
And that's
But this is not this. This is different. This is obviously makes perfect sense. They don't have to have the best show of the year. They just have to make it a Halloween theme, and that'll make people happy.
Fun show.
Yeah, just make it you know, the matches don't have to be crazy. Just make it Halloween theme. Do a few little Halloween, you know, little tricks here and there. You know, a little little shout out. That's all they got to do. So this I'm happy they're doing it. You know, but how about you tell me the significance of the arena?
I think that with the Capitol Wrestling Center, I think that when I saw it, you know, when they showed it in the Takeover 31 show and I actually watched it, you know, obviously I'm not old enough to remember the matches from the Capitol Wrestling Center in Washington D.C., you know, back in the WWF days. This is, you know, Vince McMahon. This is Vince McMahon Sr. I remember watching old tapes. You know, this goes back to the late 70s, early 80s. We're talking about, you know, the Rockers, you know, a young Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Bruno, Backlund, when it was Vince McMahon and Pat Patterson as his, you know, as his color guy. It's a complete throwback. And for me, when I saw the theme of the Capitol Wrestling Center, it was very nostalgic, and I was very happy to see WWE utilizing it. Now, I understand that once you see the video of the Capitol Wrestling Center from the 1970s, and then they go to the live shot of what it looks like now, it's like, all right, this is completely different, because it looks like it almost, the way that they dressed up the Performance Center, it almost looks like that would be like the house for, you know, Retribution, and we'll get to them momentarily, but because, you know, you got the chain linked fences on the plexiglass. You know, you got the video wall in the back. You know, they're utilizing all the things that they were utilizing in the Amway Center, in the Performance Center. And listen, nice touch, right? It's you know, it looks good. It's better than being in Full Sail, because that place looked flat and it was just boring. They needed to get out of there. But you know, just the idea of mentioning the Capitol Wrestling Center, the one thing that I would probably like to see WWE do every now and then on NXT, it doesn't have to be every week, but when you know, if they're going to show the intro to the Capitol Wrestling Center, do it every week, because I think you want to ingrain that old, you know, that sense of history and lineage, because it's really what WWE is in NXT they're trying to do, is that they're the quote unquote wrestling brand, so they're trying to really show the lineation to, you know, to its past. They're trying to connect the present to the WWE's past, and more so than ever, that's actually a very good thing, because sometimes WWE can, you know, has gotten so far off the rails, and they want to be like Walt Disney, that it, you know, you kind of tend to lose, you know, your groundwork in professional wrestling. I don't care if they want to call it sports entertainment or whatever they, you know, whatever term they want to call it. It's still pro wrestling, and ultimately, what you want to have is, you want to keep those roots, you want to keep that connection. And I think that when I view what NXT is doing, obviously Vince McMahon has, you know, gives, you know, has a voice in this. He may not get the last voice in NXT, but I'm thinking that this might become a little more of WWE's future once Vince McMahon is no longer at the helm. Meaning, yes, it's still sports entertainment, but they're going to lean more towards trying to bridge that gap between the WWE's present and their past, and find that bridge, and find that median between the two. And that might be the, you know, in a perfect world, it might be the right anchor, the right harmonious piece for WWE to be able to, you know, get their act together on a creative basis. Who knows?
All right, so you brought up NXT Takeover, so let's go through these results real quick. So you had Damian Priest defeat Johnny Gargano.
Not surprised.
Yeah, not surprised. Kushida defeated Velveteen Dream by submission.
Not surprised, but a little It was an over exaggerated performance on Velveteen Dream's part.
You had Santos Escobar defeat Isaiah Swerve. I like saying Swerve like that. Scott.
I actually was surprised by that finish. I thought that this would have been the right moment for Swerve to win the cruiserweight title. So I'm a little surprised by that result.
You had Io Shirai go over Candice LeRae.
Not surprised at all.
No. A lot of people had that as match of the night. Did you like it?
Io Shirai against Candice LeRae?
Uh-huh.
As match of the night? Absolutely not. Was it a good match? Yes, but match of the night? Oh, no way. No way. Whoever saw that probably stopped watching the show right there, didn't get to the main event, or they need to go see their oculist.
Well, I think what it really is, Lou, I think it's expectation. So I don't think that match had the same pressure on it that Finn Balor against Kyle O'Reilly had, because it was very, very hyped.
Well, it was a fantastic match.
No, it was great, but I don't think I think people were expecting an all time great NXT Takeover match. I don't think that's what they got.
I don't know.
It was awesome though. It was awesome.
I don't know what to tell those people. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell them.
All right, so Finn beat Kyle O'Reilly. You cool with that?
Yes, I'm totally fine with that. That's let's put it like this. That match, with the exception of Finn Balor, bursting Kyle O'Reilly's liver, and then O'Reilly giving Balor the broken jaw as a receipt. Of course, both of those. I mean, think about it, right? So when that happened, the match clearly finished early. Clearly,
I think that's really what it's the finish that but it's not their fault. But
well, you kind of can't say it was their fault.
I mean, it's a mistake. It was an accident.
Yeah, of course it was. Of course it was an accident. But
what shot did it? Did you keep?
If you go back to the match, it was towards the end when Kyle O'Reilly was making his comeback, and he had Balor in the corner, and then he hit him with that running knee. When he hit him with the running knee, here's how I knew that something was wrong immediately. It wasn't the fact that Balor was selling; it was the way he was selling. Because generally, when you take a knee like that, if you're selling, you would either drape in the corner or you would slump down, sitting, right? Like you just got. When Balor got hit with that knee, this is what he did immediately. Like literally, it was just like he didn't even sell like the way that you would normally sell in a wrestling sense. Mm-hmm. And then once he got his hand off his face, it was already swollen immediately. And I was like, oh no! I was like, this dude just broke his jaw. It's either he broke his jaw, or he got or he got his bicuspids knocked out. Like he got hit, and then literally, I don't know what communication they did, but Kyle's comeback ended abruptly. He was down, and then when Balor hit the coup de grace, he hit the coup de grace, right? And he didn't even pin him. He was selling his jaw the whole time. He's holding on to his jaw, and blood spurting out of his mouth. I'm like, this dude's got a broken jaw. Like his eye is partially swollen, his cheek is swollen. The match ended literally 90 seconds after Kyle O'Reilly was making his comeback, which should not have happened. There's probably another 5-minute sequence in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And
that final stretch, which is obviously some of the best parts of most matches, is missing, which sucks, but I'm sure they'll do it again someday. Yo, how have you heard of besides Drew McIntyre, now how much of a pussy is Finn gonna look like? Because on WWE television, Drew McIntyre got his jaw broken by a punt from Randy Orton, and he was back, I think, the next week or 2 weeks, right? He missed 1 week. Did he?
Yeah. Listen. There's a difference between obvious storyline and the shoot.
Hey,
I'm just saying.
I know that, but
there's two very different things, man.
I get it. But what I'm saying is, why do you say that he has a broken jaw? You don't have to say that. If you have no plan of having him out for at least a believable time frame, right? I'm okay with saying someone has an injury. I think you can say whatever, concussion, whatever, if it makes sense. But give him the time frame, even if it's we've seen people come back from real injuries faster than expected. So
Yes.
you can bring them back early, but you're gonna see that Drew was out for 1 week and Finn might be out, I don't know how long, because he's gonna have his jaw wired. He might not be able to perform. I don't know. How long did it take? Do you remember any people getting their jaws broken and how long it took? Do you have an idea of a time frame for this injury?
I know that Beth Phoenix got her jaw broken years ago in a match against Victoria on WWE Raw, and I knew the spot immediately when it happened. It was a shot to where Victoria was going to hit Beth Phoenix with a right hand. Now, generally, what you do is when you know you're going to get hit, you clench your jaw. What happened with Beth was her jaw was open. Kala caught it, jaw was broken immediately. Beth was out, I think about 3 months.
Ooh.
So, that because think about it, when you have a broken jaw, they don't put a cast on you. That thing it has to heal on its own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Finn, listen, Finn Balor's a young man, and knowing his health and his level of conditioning, it's not just a matter of the jaw healing, but then it's actually him getting his body back in shape. Because when you have to go on a liquid diet, you're going to lose a lot of weight, and in his case, a lot of size. So he's going to have to get the jaw healed up. Then he's going to have to recondition his body so that when he comes back, he still looks like Finn Balor and not like a lesser version. So I don't know how that's going to play out in storyline. The only one thing that I will say that I didn't like, in the aftermath, obviously the immediate aftermath with Rich Holland and Adam Cole was just awful. But this the following NXT show, when Kyle O'Reilly cut the promo with the Undisputed Era, he didn't sell any injuries. He didn't look like he was hurt, and he didn't look angry about losing. He almost sounded disappointed and like, oh, my bad. And I'm like, no, you should be pissed off. Or if you're trying to be a sportsman about it, there still has to be something underneath that's brewing to be like, you know what, I'm hot about the fact that I blew this incredible opportunity. And that's that little thing where I'm like, these are little subtle things that you can't goof that up, and they goofed it up in that particular instance. So I was like, I'll give that a downer for the aftermath for Kyle O'Reilly and his promo.
And before we move on, this is where old school back in the day, calling in the ring and being able to make decisions on the fly. Back in the day, if Finn had enough stroke, which in NXT I'd imagine he does, if this was 82, Finn would have been like, "You're going over, kid. My jaw's broken. Pin me."
Here's the thing, though. In a situation like that, it's really unfortunate because now you're talking about the second champion in a row that, because when Karrion Kross beat Keith Lee for the title, he broke his shoulder, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through the match. In this match, Finn Balor got his jaw broken, and it doesn't, obviously with Karrion Kross, he's going to be out for the foreseeable future, getting his shoulder repaired. Finn Balor's going to be out for a little while with this jaw injury. It's not going to be, he's not going to come back from this, in 2 or 3 weeks. It's just not happening. It's just not. So it almost seems like NXT is going to have, they're going to have to address this in some way, shape, or form on their TV. Maybe NXT, they didn't announce anything this week because they weren't prepared. And the fact that when Karrion Kross went down, they had an easy, break glass moment when, Ciampa, Gargano, Balor and Adam Cole, and they were able to get two weeks of main event matches on their television. But you can't go back to that formula.
Do that again. So
you can't do that again. So it almost feels like, what now? It's either NXT just says, screw it, we're gonna let Balor hold on to this, or you do a tournament, or you do something that's a little more traditional that could be told over however many weeks.
You know what I want them to do? I want them to put the two last contenders, the two most recent opponents, just put them to go up against each other. Whoever those two may be. Anyway,
Colin O'Reilly. Okay, I got you.
Anyway, we also had
not a bad idea actually.
We also had Ember Moon make her way back to NXT. Which is a better surprise than Bo Dallas, if you ask me.
You are absolutely right. I will not contest that.
And she looked awesome. She freshened up her character. And she was not being used well, at all on the main roster.
You're right about that.
So, fresh start for her. And who else showed up? Another female.
Toni Storm.
Toni Storm showed up. So now you have now the women's division in NXT is looking pretty good. All of a sudden, remember, we were like, all these girls feel ever since when Charlotte showed up there, made all the girls, no one got over. Everyone looked like less than. They all kind of look like pieces of shit now. And to me, they never recovered. Now you have two new talents that were not affected. So they come in fresh, not affected by the Charlotte run. Everything is all good, baby. So we got some new opponents, and I'm hoping one of them take that belt off Io. I don't know who, I don't know how, and I don't know when, but I'm ready for some new stories, baby. Let's go.
Listen, I'm with you now. I will say this: when Toni Storm showed up and she cut the video promo on Io Shirai, I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be awesome. I love me some Toni Storm, and I'm upset that WWE, for whatever reason, whether it was because she was in the UK and couldn't come to the United States, or because if they had her on NXT UK, I was like, no, she's well past that at this point. She needs to be on the US television shows. Ember Moon, I will agree, much better surprise than Bo Dallas would have been. You're absolutely right. I'm not zero argument for me on that. But the one thing I will say for Ember Moon is the way that when the first match that she was on this past week on NXT with her and Rhea Ripley against Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez, I don't know if I liked that, because again, I say this, when I saw that match, the first note that I said, this match is completely designed to spotlight Ember Moon. However, Rhea Ripley is the star of the NXT women's division, and nothing is going to change that until she leaves. That one match was not going to change that. Yes, it's a way to spotlight Ember Moon in a way that you can make her look like a somebody. And the fact that she won the fall and she beat, that she beat Dakota Kai, beat her with that finish, which is a cool looking finish,
and looks better now than it did before. Like she's I don't know, she's made it look more difficult than it was before. It looked crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this for Ember Moon, and obviously, this is more, once she kind of gets, because after coming back from that Achilles injury, which almost ended her career. And I'm very happy to see her back. I mean, I really am. I thought that her run on NXT originally was very good. And when she came to the main roster, she had a lot of steam to her and it was immediately squelched. So coming back to NXT is a good thing. I think I found it kind of awkward because when I saw the match, I just thought to myself, Ember Moon and Rhea Ripley look like the heels because they got like that whole badass, S&M, Mad Max Road Warriors type look. And then you look at Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez, they look like the baby faces by comparison if you just visually look at them. So I understand for Ember Moon, it's just like you're trying to make things different, and that's great. And the more and I'm sure that the more that Ember, hits the gym and gets her legs under her, gets back into ring shape, she'll look, even physically she'll look better. So I'm waiting on that because I know that Ember Moon she's very talented. It's a matter with her is that it's been very up and down. And when I look at Ember Moon, it almost appears to me like this is the best situation for her, meaning Io Shirai being the champion is actually the best bit of business because, again, I think that Rhea Ripley needs to go. She's ready for the main roster and she needs to go. And it's not because, it's not because she's stinking up NXT, certainly not. It's more a matter for her. It's just like, all right, there really isn't anywhere else for you to go. They're just kind of buying their time. WWE is with her. It's time to move her up. Now, with having Io Shirai as the champion, now you introduce Toni Storm, you introduce Ember Moon, and yes, I agree. These are they were not affected at all by Charlotte Flair's run because they weren't featured on NXT because Toni Storm wasn't on and Ember Moon was out on injury. So you got a great opportunity, and again, this is why I say that having Io Shirai is actually very good because Io being the champion, even though she's the champion and she's going to give you a lot of great matches, she's not the top star in the women's division. She's not. She's clearly not, even though she's the champion. It's Rhea Ripley, and then everybody else is fighting for number 2. And you'll put Io Shirai at number 2 simply because she's the champion, and that's even debatable. But it's all a matter of, taking a look down, and I think that inserting those two, Toni Storm and Ember Moon, it's fantastic for their women's division because again, it does freshen things up and it gives potential opponents for Io Shirai. So, yeah, I mean, I would like to see actually Toni Storm beat Io Shirai because I think with Toni Storm, she's a very different presentation, and I think that all the women on NXT right now that don't seem like they'd be great matches for Io Shirai size wise, it won't be the same story with Toni Storm.
Yeah, and with Ember Moon, that random tag match, I don't see the purpose of it. Yeah, it's to spotlight her, but whatever. It's unnecessary. The same thing I said about Big E and the way they should be booking him towards the top is the same way I feel about her. Even though she's been at the top of the mountain before, this is a fresh start. It's let's. I think you can use the same technique with her, and it'll work.
I will say this for Ember Moon, the promo that she cut when she first appeared on NXT, that promo sucked, and I think that it's a actual learning lesson for Ember Moon and for WWE. The way that they need to tell Ember Moon's story is they're going to have to do it similar to the way that they do with Io Shirai, meaning that they do a lot of these video packages for her where she gets to, speak a lot in Japanese and they do this, really super cool looking thing. They're going to have to do the same thing with Ember Moon because I think it's better where you can kind of like edit things out and get like the best snippets. Because when Ember Moon was speaking, it almost seemed like she was, I don't want to say lost, but she seemed like almost a little bit uncomfortable. And it's like when you look at the visual of how Ember Moon looks and then when she starts speaking, I'm like, those two things don't go together. So it makes more sense to have Ember Moon. She could speak in her own voice when she's sitting down and discussing her injuries and all this stuff. And then you can B-roll all the Mad Max Thunderdome, gimmick stuff that she's doing. And I think that might be a better fit for her because that standalone promo in the ring was awful.
All right. So on Raw, we had Ali going up against MVP. They got the whole Hurt Business going up against the group of friends, whatever you want to call them, with Ricochet, Apollo Crews, Ali.
We should just call them the Bad News Bears because they never win.
Yeah, they. Well, Ali was able to get a win the week before.
Yeah, he did.
Obviously, they like Ali a little bit more than the rest of the crew, but he was going up against MVP. This match eventually ended in a no contest. You got like during the match, the lights doing the flickering, and you got the Retribution members coming to the ring. And then you have like Her Business, like, yo, you with us or what? We got to fight these guys. And Ali's like playing it off like, oh yeah. And then Ali goes to get in their face, and then here's the reveal. You have Ali, is he the leader? I don't know. As of now, he's the leader. There could be more people. Who knows? There could be 75, and they can just be working their way up the ladder, the Retribution ladder. But as of right now, he's the number one guy that we know of, which I guess is fine. I don't know if it's good enough for me to forget all the shit. But he's supposed to explain himself right now. He probably did it already. Yes, he did do it already. Looking at the time, so I don't know what he said yet. I'll go watch it after this. But he's a very good promo. He's a really smart dude. He actually, shockingly, for a smaller guy, a guy who does more of the high flying stuff, it's obvious that the WWE trusts him because when he was doing his promos, his own little vignettes, it was a lot of his own ideas, like his own style of filming, his own like character work. He's one of the few guys that they trust with his own stuff. So maybe he's able to give some ideas and try to clean up this mess. I don't know if he can do it. I don't know if he can do it on his own. He at least he wears a mask already. So I guess that explains why he was able to convince all his goons to, yeah, guys should wear cool mask. It's important. I don't know if they want to use the hacker storyline that was on, because that was clearly supposed to be him. And you know what's funny? When Retribution first, when we first saw them, when they had the 5 little people, I thought one was Ember Moon, I thought one was Ricochet, and I thought one was Mustafa Ali. I really did. So eventually I thought there's no way in hell. Now when they announced the 5, well, there's no way in hell Ricochet or Mustafa Ali or Ember Moon are part of the group. So they tricked me. But yeah, that's what we got. We got Ali as maybe the leader, but definitely the leader when it comes to the people that have been, announced or whatever.
Well, my disposition when I look at Mustafa Ali as for now, the number 1 guy in Retribution, it's still my thing is, so what? And I say this with all due respect, because Mustafa Ali comes across to me as the kind of guy that I would probably personally like very much. He's a fantastic athlete. He looks like $1,000,000. Knowing that he's that he's Muslim, and knowing, and in the WWE, and then knowing his backstory, of all, being a former police officer in Chicago, and being very vocal, on social media and on WWE TV when they've allowed him to talk about those things. How well spoken he is. The issue that I've always taken with Mustafa Ali is that he was never over. He was never truly over as a babyface to where I would care that he flipped heel. Just never was. Like he obviously, when they did the whole Kofi Mania thing, part of it was based on the fact that Mustafa Ali got injured and Kofi essentially took Mustafa Ali's place, and then it just snowballed from there. But Mustafa Ali was never over. He was never over as a babyface. So now, should I care that he flipped heel? The answer is no. And again, with the Retribution gang, listen, God love you guys, but it still smells like a bunch of caca to me. So there's still a lot of work left to do, a lot. And maybe Mustafa Ali can turn himself into this really, really hot heel that can kind of make this work. I'll give him a shot because I think he's very well spoken. So if you give him something to chew on and he can go with it, I have enough confidence in him that he'll be able to get it over. But as of right now, no, he's got zero equity. So he's in a group that has zero heat. He had zero equity as a baby face, and now I'm expecting to buy him as a heel. The answer is no. You guys are all starting at zero. There's nobody that has appeared in Retribution that has any equity that you can immediately say, yes, this man, this woman I can buy them as the leader of this group. So far, no one has appeared. They're all still at the same level. They're all at zero, having to build their way up. So, I'm pulling for them because I want it to work, but we're not there yet.
Yeah. I mean, they've already screwed, not the talent, but the writers have already screwed this up so badly that, like we said before, they need something huge to make us go, oh, yeah. It needs to be so cool that we kind of just convince ourselves that it didn't matter. it's like, okay, well, it's fine, it's cool, it doesn't matter.
I mean, listen,
To me, it all matters, but whatever. You want them to win, you want them to succeed, you want the storyline to work. Especially because I like Mia Yim and Mercedes Martinez, um, and and I kind of like how Dio Madden looks. I think he looks so cool. I
of
was like,
course.
whoa! I think for him, like this look, if they ever break up, he should keep the look because he looks so dope.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, listen, I've said this before, and again, we spoke about this in the last video, so I'm not gonna harp on this too much. But WWE made a mistake in terms of not allowing these people to actually reveal who they are because they've already been on WWE television, with the exception of Dio Madden, who'd only been on Raw Underground, and it's hard to miss him because he's a big dude. But Shane Thorne, Dijakovic, Mia Yim and Mercedes Martinez had all been featured quite heavily on NXT very, very shortly prior to their reveal as the Retribution people. So as far as I'm concerned, WWE screwed that up and they're trying to clean it up. And like I said, they got a long way to go. Long way to go before this even taste even partly good.
Um. So yeah, before we get out of here, we obviously lost Road Warrior Animal on September 22nd, which is my mom's birthday. So
Happy birthday to your mom, and my condolences to the Laurinaitis family because that's a huge loss, man.
yeah, so officially, both Road Warriors are gone. Um, so yeah, any thoughts on their legacy, their impact, what they meant to tag team wrestling, or just what they meant to just being badasses, right? They almost laid the groundwork for so many characters, so many guys who come out with shoulder pads or interesting, gear and face paint. You know, so many people want to paint their face and make that work, right? Make that, you know, when I drew myself, I'm like, okay, what would I wear if I was a wrestling character? I painted my face, so whenever I created myself in wrestling games, I had a painted face. And a lot of it is because of them. So, yeah, man. Any thoughts on their legacy, their impact?
Man, when I think of the Road Warriors, I think of them the way that I first saw them when I was a kid. I was probably, oh goodness, maybe 8, 9 years old, and this was at a time when WCW or the NWA did not was not on TV in the Northeast unless you had cable. Now, I had one of my uncles that he lived in Manhattan, so he would get the TBS program. So from time to time, he would record the shows and give them to me, give me the tapes, or if I went to his house, I'd watch them on the weekends. And I remember when I saw the Road Warriors and I saw these two guys and I just thought to myself, holy shit, who are these? Who are these guys? They will come to the ring and the fans would just lose their minds. And no matter who the opposition was, you just thought to yourself, "Is like, oh God, help these guys. They're going to get the piss beaten out of them. It doesn't matter who it is on the other side of the ring." Um, I remember, so vehemently. I remember, Hawk's promo. I remember Animal's presence, and I remember Paul Ellering. Just you could tell that Paul Ellering he was the guy behind the wheel driving this thing, and he had these two crazy looking dudes pretty much at his beck and call, and you know, just I just always thought how amazing these guys were. I remember very vehemently, they had a match. I believe it was against the Steiner brothers, and I just thought to myself, this was two babyface teams at the time, but I didn't care. I wanted to see it because I remember watching the Steiners and watching the Road Warriors, and I thought to myself, what's going to happen when these two teams fight?
It was a very similar. They had similar styles, kind of. It like meaning they'd come to the ring, they'd throw you around, and they'd get you out of there, and it looked like it hurt. It didn't look fun for the other team.
No. It was certainly not a fun night for the opposition. But the thing is, when I look at them, I always think of the Road Warriors as that NWA team. When they wore black, they had the black shoulder pads. They were, they were the embodiment of Thunderdome, Mad Max. Like if you see that in what you would think that movie would be in real life, even though we know wrestling is entertainment, but those two guys are like the closest thing to it. I remember how hyped I was to hear that they were coming to the WWF back in 1990. I just thought to myself, this is going to be so cool. The Road Warriors have finally come to the WWF. And when they came, they were still the Road Warriors, but they weren't the Road Warriors. Their look was changed. Paul Ellering wasn't there. And, they had a ready-made feud with Demolition that the WWF obviously just said, no, we're not going to go this route. And they just kind of had, they had the matches they had. I was disappointed by it because I really thought that that could have been a story they could have told for a long time, and they just kind of ran right through it. After their initial run, obviously Hawk had his run in Japan, as in tag teams and in singles. He did a lot of really cool stuff. When they came back to the United States in 1995, when they came back as the Road Warriors and they reunited, everything after that just kind of seemed like it was a slightly diminished version. Every single time I saw them, it just seemed slightly more diminished. And, obviously when Hawk died, I was, it was rough because that was like one of the first times that I'm beginning to look at like, the guys in my childhood that I remember watching, like they're all going. And obviously Hawk wasn't the first one. There's so many others before him. And young guys too. None of them got to the age of 50. Knowing that Animal got to 60 was like, that almost seems like a feat. And 60 is not old. 60 is very, very young. But for professional wrestlers, for some reason, 60 feels like the average 80-year-old. And then you see, the things that, with the dark side of the ring that, we got a chance to see this past year when Animal, lent his voice to that. And, he lent the voice to the experience of being a part of the Road Warriors, and then he and Ellering being a part of that. It's rough because, when I take a look at a team like the Road Warriors, there's never going to be another team like them. It's just not going to happen. Because their unique look, they were main eventers everywhere they went. And that's a rarity in tag team wrestling, when you have a tag team be able to go all over the world and they're the main event, or they're just right underneath the world title match, and that's, I can only imagine if the Road Warriors were around in the WWF in the 80s during the Hogan era, what look those tag team matches would have had, having the Road Warriors on the card. And you could literally have Hogan in town A and the Road Warriors in town B, and they'd be competing, selling out pretty much the same, because that's how over the Road Warriors were at that time. So it's unfortunate. It's one of those things where, and then, I don't want to be too morose, but that's like one of the things that I learned, that as I get older, one of the blessings of getting older is you get smarter about things. But one of the more difficult parts is that unfortunately you lose things, and you lose these people. And as a lifelong wrestling fan, when you see these guys pass away, it's like small parts of you go, because these are no matter how much I follow the wrestlers today, and I appreciate what they do and I appreciate their efforts, it's not the same because you look at them with an adult set of eyes. But these are people that when you were a kid, they mesmerized you, and they made you love wrestling. They made you want to tune in every week. And, no matter whether the matches were good or not, that's not what it was about. With the Road Warriors, it was about the whole get up, the presentation, the aura of the Road Warriors. And that's just something that it'll never be duplicated. And now, that's an era now in wrestling history that unfortunately has passed on. But, their careers and their lives live forever, thankfully, through the WWE network and, the library of matches that they have. because they basically have just about everything that the Road Warriors did in the United States, the WWE owns, and they have. So it's a huge testament, and I really hope that people take the time to watch the Road Warriors, appreciate just how I'll use it. It was a beautiful disaster when you see the Road Warriors, because it's something that'll never be. You'll never see something like that again. And I hope the fans can watch and really appreciate that, so that they have an understanding of, when I always say that when wrestling is done right, it's beautiful. Those guys were an example.
All right, so real quick, what should we go watch? Is there one match right now? We're gonna get out of here. What can I go watch? What do you recommend? One Road Warrior match.
I mean, one Road Warrior match. There's a couple of them from the era, right? The scaffold match that they had with the Midnight Express. I think this is from, and my dates might be a little fuzzy. This might be from 1987. Is it the greatest match in the world? No, but when you see the buildup and the story that they tell, it's a great one. Another one would be when the Road Warriors turned heel on Dusty Rhodes, and they used a spike in, that they tried to take Dusty's eye out. Mm-hmm. That's and again, it might look silly to today's fans, but when you try to put yourself in that era and that thought process, another match would be one of the original War Games match, where it was the Road Warriors, Dusty, Lex Luger, and I believe Nikita Koloff against the Horsemen. So this is not Nikita Koloff. I'm sorry, Paul Ellering. So it was Dusty. I think it was Dusty, Nikita, and the Dusty, Nikita, the Road Warriors, and Ellering against the Four Horsemen and JJ Dillon. You watch that match and you start seeing the progression of how over the Road Warriors were, how badass they were. They have matches against the Samoans. They have a match against the Steiners. You could watch Starrcade 89. Future Shock is a good one to watch. Were the matches great? No, they weren't. But you get to see them, the Road Warriors. They work against the Samoans, they work against the Steiners, and they work against Doom. So, these are like four big man teams, but all the matches seem very different because even though they were all huge, burly guys, as wide as any door, but they knew how to work. And I think that a lot of times with the Road Warriors, what people don't really realize is that although the Road Warriors had they had a lane that they stayed in very specifically, but within their lane, they were excellent. And I think that that's something that in today's modern wrestling, where people try to do too many things and they're trying to test every flavor out, and big guys trying to do little guy things, little guys trying to do big guy things, whatnot. The Road Warriors were very specific to their lane. They knew it was like, all right, this is our lane, and either you're gonna work with us in our lane, or we're gonna make you work in our lane. Like, they're not, they weren't deviating too far. So, and that's just an example. I mean, they have other good matches in the WWF, but it was a much different situation with them in the WWF than it was in WCW. They didn't have as many really great matches because they didn't have a very long run in the WWF, and subsequently every other time that they came after their initial run in 1990, it was a diminished version. So it's not, there aren't as many great Road Warrior matches in the WWF as there were in the AWA, NWA, Jim Crockett, WCW. So if you really want to see some great Road Warriors matches, look over on that side, because there's plenty to pick from.
Like and subscribe, everyone.